Hello, and welcome to an absolute beginner's tutorial to healing. My name is Bowser the Healer, and I'm not quite going to explain it to you like you're 5, but I am going to hold your paw, and we're going to walk through how to actually heal in World of Warcraft from a very beginner level. This is going to be focused on endgame content, but luckily if you're leveling or doing anything that isn't like the hard endgame stuff, great news, it should be easier than anything that I end up talking about. So I might be talking about how complicated healer is, but if you're level 30 and you only got like 2 or 3 healing spells, don't worry about it. It's just easier and everything will still apply to you. Also, while I will be using Holy Priest for our examples today, this video is good for all the healing classes out there and all the healing specs. And realistically, while other healers are different and function differently, I think Holy Priest is the easiest for me to explain in short notice. So let's say you're excited about Mistweaver or Preservation Evoker, all of this will still apply to you. And you'll understand that as we go on. So I promise you, you're in the right place. Even if you're like, well, I want this video for Preservation Evoker. I do have a preservation guide as well. But I just think Holy Priest is such a good place to start as a healer, even if you're just spectating. This video is going to go through mechanics and controls first, kind of just going over how to play the game and what I expect of you and what you kind of need to know in order to follow along with this video. Then we're going to, after going through that, talk about what a healer is, how Holy Priest works. Then we're going to go into delves to go through some basic terminology and sort of show you how you can practice, follower dungeons to understand the flow, and then we're going to go into Mythic Plus, which will be significantly harder than what I'm showing you, but I think by the time I show you that part of the video, we will have gradually gotten to where all of this will start applying in real time, and hopefully that'll give you a bit of direction as to how you can work on healing and learn healing. Let's get this out of the way really quick though. Healing is hard. At the highest level, healing can be difficult, but it does have a nice gradual learning curve. I don't think it's the hardest thing to pick up and play. I think it's hard as you start getting into the weeds, but I think that makes it a lot more approachable. And I like playing supports in games, so for me, it's worth learning healing even if it's hard. And when healing's too easy, it can be a bit of a snore. So I'm very happy that WoW has very engaging healing, but don't let that scare you off. It starts very easy. A lot of the times you're going to be clicking on someone and healing them, and you're going to be like, great, I've healed them. They are no longer dying. And that's going to be the start of your adventure. So it's not too hard to get into. Now, if you ever watch high level play of the game, you might see that the health bars move really quickly and there's a lot of damage coming in. And that's because there is, but that's actually easier than most of what you might encounter. The game is easy with 5 people all talking together and kind of walking through, hey, what spells are we going to stop? Like, what defensives are we going to use? And then where you heal becomes a lot more readable and easier to understand. When you're learning this game, people are going to make mistakes, and a lot of the times that burden will fall on the healer to try to fix it. Now, you can't fix someone dying instantaneously, right? You're especially not allowed to blame yourself for most deaths that happen within a second and a half or less, but the game is challenging because player error can result in a lot of different variants in what you have to heal. So the difficulty of a run, you might do a dungeon that's really easy and you're like, oh, that was so simple. And then you do an easier dungeon that was harder and you're gonna be like, what gives, right? One of the things that's happened this expansion at midnight, if you're watching it right around now, is that players said this is such an easy expansion. And while it is in some aspects, if you're a new player dealing with some of the harder dungeons this season, you're going to be thinking to yourself, what do they mean it's easy? And that's because, again, depending on player skill, the difficulty that ends up in the healer's lap can really, really range. So just be prepared for that. Now let's go over controls. Also, if you've been hearing like my fan in the background, I'm really sorry. It's really hot out. I have to have this fan on me, so my apologies if it comes through at all. So let's talk controls. All I need you to be able to do off rip is, can you strafe left and right? Can you run forward and backwards, right? And it's called backpedaling in this game. It's technically slower. It's technically faster to turn around and run, right, at any point in time. But I want to make sure you can do it. And then space to jump. I only want those buttons bound for now. Everything else you're going to bind via personal preference. And even then, like, your jump button might not have to be the space bar if you don't want it to be. Although, for us winged creatures, I think having your double jump bound to space is quite convenient for getting out of trouble. Now, there's 2 ways to play World of Warcraft, and there's a lot of ways to play World of Warcraft, actually. If you want to play on controller, the add-on's called Console Port. I'm not going over that today, but I have healed some very hard dungeons on Console Port, so if you would like to play on a controller and you're cool with tinkering around with a very complicated, very advanced, but very pretty add-on, go for it. Console port's amazing. But for keyboard and mouse players, barring any accessibility needs, my recommendation is that you use your hand to move and press buttons on your keyboard to cast your spells, do your damage, get your healing done. Then you use your mouse button to actually target people in the world. And now, there are players who do what's called click casting, where they click on a target and then they click the heal. That's going to be really slow, and it will cause you some problems. If it is the only way that you can play WoW due to some accessibility needs, find a way to target your team with, say, buttons on a keyboard or a scroll or something. I need you to have a method of targeting while you're going to click buttons to heal people. But for most of you, I'm going to recommend for two hands, right? One on the mouse, one on the keyboard, and you're going to use your keyboard to move and press spells and use your mouse to aim. Now, if you're trying to remap buttons, by the way, just note there's a quick keybind mode here, and this will let you just kind of hover over mouse over a button and you can remap it. So you can just instantly unmap things, remap things, etc. Just by mousing over them. And it will properly like unassign other buttons as well, so it can make your life a lot easier for just getting everything set up the way you like it. If you have a MMO mouse, you can bind all of your moves to the keys around your hand and then on your mouse. I play a lot of first-person shooters, thus I have a first-person shooter mouse, so I actually have shift and control bound on my mouse. This means that all the buttons around my hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Q and E, R, X, C, and V, F, all these things, well, now I can press 1 or control 1 or shift 1 by simply using my right hand to press control or shift. So that way I'm not actually stretching my hand across the keyboard to hit control 5, right? That'd be terrible. So thankfully I don't have to do that, but find a way to play that is convenient and easy on your hands. We don't want to hurt our hands here playing World of Warcraft. I've worked in esports for too long. Comfort will always win when it comes to being able to play a game. Next up on our control, we're going to talk about mouse overcasting. Go to your options menu, and by the way, anytime there's a search bar in this game, you can use it to do a lot of work. So if you type in mouse here, you can find mouse overcast. I turned it on, and then I have none for my mouse overcast key. But just as a quick aside, let's say you're looking for flash heal as our basic heal, and you want to know all of the things that can interact with flash heal. Well, if you type into the search bar, you'll get all these magnifying glasses. So, right, there's nothing. I type in flash heal, and now flash heal shows up everywhere it interacts with. So I highly recommend you use these search bars. They're very useful for figuring things out in the game. You can also do it in your spell book. And if I type the word in heal here, I'm sure we're going to get a million hits. So something for you to think about when you're playing if you're ever trying to find something. So what is mouse overcasting? Well, once you turn it on in your option settings, right? Once it's set on, you're going to be able to simply mouse over something in the world and heal it. By default, by targeting nothing, and if you heal, you'll heal yourself typically. If I mouse over this target though, I will directly heal them. If I mouse over this target, I'll directly heal them. You're going to see I'm always healing somebody else. It's a priest quirk, I'll talk about it later. But yeah, I can mouse over a target and heal them. Now, it's a little insane to try to target people in the world like this. Like, are you kidding me? Like trying to track someone? That's crazy. But a lot of the times you can mouse over these frames. Your player frame, your target frame, your focus frame if you end up using it, and more importantly, your party and raid frames. Raid frames kind of looking like that usually. You can mouse over them. No clicking required, and heal them. When you click on a target, they become your new default. Now, this is an enemy. I can't press flash heal and heal them, but if I press my damaging move smite, I will start hitting them. So this means I can mouse over an ally and still smite this enemy pretty easily. So this is one way that you can kind of make sure you can do damage while you heal. Or let's say you want to make sure you're cranking all of your heals into your tank and only your tank. You can always go left click on them. They have a frame up, and then you can mouse over this or mouse over the tank frame or whatever have you, and you're pretty much guaranteed to heal them. Now, one little trick is whenever you hold the right mouse in WoW, you can move your camera. I use the scroll wheel to change my camera position, and I use my right mouse button to move the mouse, to move my camera around. I use this to turn, all that good stuff. The reason I'm bringing this up is that your mouse actually disappears when you do this. So notice if I mouse over people, they highlight. If I hold down the right mouse button, you'll notice that my mouse cursor doesn't do anything. I have an add-on that lets me find my mouse cursor, called Ultimate Mouse Cursor, so I don't lose track of it. But as you can see, my mouse has disappeared from the game. This can be very useful for making sure that you heal the one target that you're selecting. In order to understand our role as a healer, let's just really quick go over the roles in WoW. There are tanks, DPS, and healers. The tank's job is to do damage to the enemies, get them angry at them, enmity, threat, or aggro, it's typically referred to as. And then when all the enemies are looking at them, they defend against their attacks and stay alive. The damage dealers are meant to blow up the enemies. It's as simple as that. And as a healer, your job is to keep everyone alive and then support as necessary. There are 3 things that I think are everyone's responsibility in WoW, and I think this is a good rule to go by, whether it's a tank, a DPS, or a healer. Everyone's responsible for doing damage, everyone's responsible for controlling the enemies, and everyone's responsible for healing. As a healer, you only do damage when you got free time, but it does add up, and it is good to be good at doing damage as a healer. But if healing ever it takes precedent, yeah, please by all means focus on healing, don't worry about the damage. That being said, controlling enemies sometimes prevents damage. So, for instance, on Priest here, I have a move called Psychic Scream. It's a 40-second cooldown, but 8 yards around me, everyone will be feared. While there's some things in WoW that can't be feared, this is a great way of stopping enemies from attacking for a moment. Now, it won't interrupt them. That's a special kind of move called an interrupt that DPS and tanks typically get. And I really hope we get them as healers one day again, because I miss mine dearly. However, when it comes to interrupts, these specifically stop those colorful cast bars and will interrupt that school of magic, turning it off for a little bit. So let's say the fire mage has 3 different fire spells they cast, and when you interrupt them, sometimes it's referred to as a kick. So when you kick them, they actually can't cast fire for a little bit. You don't have access to one of these, but it's part of control. The whole team is working together to stop these enemies from casting bad spells and hurting each other. Sometimes you'll see a gray cast bar. That means it's a protected cast or a cast that cannot be stopped. However, if the mob can be feared, you might be able to stop it anyway. And so sometimes you see a disaster about to strike and you might be able to control the enemies instead of having to heal. And so that could be something that you can use to your advantage. This is a little more advanced, but I want you to know that it's something you are capable of as a healer. Finally, that last one might have sounded a little funny. Everyone's responsible for their own health bars? Yeah, so us as healers are here to support the team. We heal the incoming damage that is unstoppable or any accidental damage that might happen. We try to keep the team alive. We should expect that everyone else in the party is also trying to keep themselves alive. They have defensives, they potentially have health pots, they should have a healing ability or 2 on them. And while some specs are better at healing themselves than others, or can provide more group utility rather than personal utility, everyone has defensives, everyone has a self-heal. And while it's not pretty, right, how much they can always heal themselves, it's important to note that they can work with you to stay alive. It's not all up to you, and it shouldn't always all be up to you. But there are going to be times where some damage comes in, and yeah, just heal everyone up. They're all too busy doing damage, and nothing is too threatening right now. So yeah, okay, go heal them. But yeah, it's on everyone. So if your tank is falling over every single pull, and they're just dying left and right, and you're like, what's going on? That's their responsibility. You're there to help them. But if the tank's instantly dying, something horrible is going on, and that's not your fault. So, what is a healer? How do we heal? Okay, I got you. When someone is low on health, you heal them. I'm not even kidding. When somebody loses a certain amount of health, I think it's time to swap gears and start healing them. I think 10 to 15% health missing is a good time to start healing someone. There will be times at a high level where you actually, need to keep them at 100% because they might lose 98% of their health bar. But that's for high level play. Most of the time, having 10 to 15% missing health is fine, and a player might heal that up via leech. Leech is a thing some characters have where their damage and their healing reconverts into healing on themselves. So they might just heal themselves up a little bit slowly over time. But also, once they're below that margin, yeah, toss them a heal, right? Then it's time to finally start thinking about healing them. When it comes to tanks, however, my golden rule here is at 50%, they probably need some healing. I think if the tank has lost 30% of their HP, you can toss them one heal, like a little something to help them, but realistically, they probably got it. They fall below 50%, they might need a little more help, so try to help them out until they seem to stabilize. There's one rule to this, and I hate to get super technical on all of you, but Blood Death Knight as a tank is very unique. They're the red class, the red health bar tanks that you might get. They ping pong, as in their health bar just goes back and forth all the time. It can be a little unnerving as a healer. For them, only worry about them if they fall below 30-35% HP. realistically, they're going to take a lot of damage and heal it back up. And I actually made a guide on Blood Death Knight, so if you want to learn all about them and kind of how they heal themselves, it might put you at ease as a healer. But the short version is they have a cheat death normally, so when they die, they don't actually die. It's called Purgatory, and 30% HP is a great time to start worrying about them. Otherwise, just let them do their thing. I promise you they're probably okay. It's very funny when you first see it, but I know healers get a heart attack when they see that. But otherwise, yeah, 50% is when you should start worrying about your tank. If your tank's taking too much damage and you always have to be healing them, that's going to be costly. Tanks have the most amount of health, which makes them harder to heal the most targets typically. And then, of course, if somebody else gets hurt, you have to now heal the incredibly high health tank and your DPS, and that can get a little strenuous. Most of the time when the tank starts taking a lot of damage is a tank-specific mechanic, or they're running out of defensives. So it's your job to help them out when they start to die, but it's kind of on the two of you to get them back up and running before they actually fall over, and you still need to focus on your teammates if they start losing health. So this can get a little bit tricky. Who should you save? Realistically, the tank is the most important person in the party, other than you, by the way. You're the other most important person in the party. However, in terms of keeping you two alive, a lot of the times it's like more important to keep the tank alive, and if they're taking too much damage, that's too much stress on the healer, and that can cause parties to wipe and die and like not clear content because the tank wasn't staying alive. So it's just something to think about. But most of the time, the tank will be fine and they'll be chilling. They'll make a mistake and you'll be there to help them out. Now, before we get into actual content, let me quickly go over Holy Priest for you. I'm going to go a little fast here, so I'll try to explain it. I use a move called Flash Heal. I have 3 of them. Please don't worry about it. These are all the same button. So when I press Flash Heal on a target, I heal them. It's as simple as that. I also always heal the last target I healed. If the button's glowing, it'll heal instantly. And whenever I Flash Heal someone, I always heal myself. Flash Heal's a pretty versatile move, but a lot of the times, I'm just clicking Flash Heal to heal people up. The bread and butter of Holy Priest, and part of the reason why it's so easy to follow along. I'm going to click Flash Heal a whole damn lot. Prayer of Mending is a little ward I put on a target. When I put it on the target, when they take damage, they get healed, and then it'll jump back to me. Here's the thing with Prayer of Mending, though. With the way we're currently playing, it'll heal the target instantly when I put it on them, and provide a tiny little shield. So I can use these 2 charges to kind of quickly get someone some healing, even while on the move. And I know that if they take damage, they'll do some more healing for me as well. It's a very versatile move, and I'll be spending it a whole lot. Sometimes when this move heals someone, though, my Flash Heal will upgrade. It'll upgrade to what's called Benediction. If you ever see the icon change here, it's the same move, I promise you. It's just stronger, and I'm not going to get into the details of what makes it different in this video. For damage, it's nice and easy. You want to press Holy Fire, which is a 10-second cooldown. It does a lot of damage to the primary target and everyone in the area. And then while you're waiting for it to come back, you press Smite, which is a single target damage move. Like I said, healer damage isn't too hard, and so most players can handle this pretty easily, I would imagine. Well, look, Holy Fire's up. I press it again. I bring this up because there's one more move to talk about for damage, and I have variations of this move as a healer. It's an important mechanic called the Holy Word. When I use Holy Word Chastise, I'll do some damage to the target. It'll technically incapacitate them, but we don't have to worry about that today. But I'll get 2 instant cast Holy Fires, and this Paper Ghost Buddy shows up. This is an idol of Naru, my divine image. And what this means is that Naru's going to help follow up anything that I do. So if I do damage to an enemy, Naru will follow up with some damage. If I heal someone, Naru will follow up with a heal. And while it isn't as powerful as the heal I used, it's a good amount of extra healing. So I recommend using Holy Words to kind of kickstart your healing or kickstart your damage. So Holy Word Serenity is a big, strong, single target heal. And look, an idol of Naru. So I can use this to kind of start the party and get some healing done. Chastise, do some more damage, and I've extended how long my idol's out and how strong my idol is. Now, when I cast a damaging move though, notice my number 4 key here, the cooldown comes back. Yeah, look at that. That's because when you cast the relevant healing or damage spell, you will cool down the relevant Holy Word spell. This means that if I cast both my Serenity charges, right, by using Flash Heal, I'll get the move back. So by using it to kickstart my heals, not only am I doing more healing, I'm cooling the move down and getting back another round of that big, strong single target heal. Same thing with Chastise. I'm doing damage, right? But by doing this damage, I'm also getting my damaging move back. and thus I can get another chastise out. This is great because it's not like you can't suddenly swap to doing healing. Oh look, I'm doing damage. Oh, someone's hurt. I'll go heal them, right? And my idol is right there to back me up no matter what. So you kickstart your heals. The final holy word's called Sanctify. I don't have a way to cool it down on this build, and we're not going to worry about it, but it's an AoE heal. All of these stronger heals of mine are putting a small heal over time on people as well. And in case you're curious why there's so many numbers, Mastery. Our Mastery on Holy Priest says that our direct healing spells heal for an additional amount over 4 seconds. Every healer has a different mastery, every spec in the game has a different mastery, and they affect how you play the game. Even if you don't stat around your mastery, you might play around it. Preservation Evoker players, your mastery reads that you do more healing when you have more health than the target. So, even if you don't play around your mastery, you still want to have more health, because even if it's a measly 25-30% more healing, 30% more healing? Oh yeah, sign me up, right? Any day of the week. So you want to read and know what your mastery does. Sometimes they're not as interesting, but Holy Priest providing a little heal over time kind of helps you heal people, and then they kind of top themselves off. It's very nice. There are other moves, and I'll talk about them as we go. The only other thing is that every healer has what's called a Dispel. This is Purify on Holy Priest. This dispels magical effects by default. So every healer can dispel magic. Magic on debuffs on like your party frames is blue. Every healer usually has a dispel that's non-magic as well. For instance, Holy Priest can be talented to do a disease effect. When it comes to shamans, they can dispel magic, of course, and curses, while monk and priest both get poison and disease alongside their magic. Every healer is different in what they can dispel, but it's important to note that every healer can. Also, your dispel move doesn't go on cooldown unless it actually dispels something. So if you're not sure, you can always try to give it a dispel. Also, dispels have various effects. Sometimes they just hurt and do a lot of damage, but sometimes they're a bomb, and by dispelling someone, they'll also blow up. So you might need to think about when you press it versus just hitting it immediately. If you're ever curious, you can always mouse over an effect in the game and kind of read what it's doing for you. So I know my chat blockers are in the way right now, but if I were to heal myself here and get this little buff, there's a buff or two here. You can mouse over them and read what they're doing for you. And same thing with things like dispels or enemy effects. When you click on a target, if they have something, you can mouse over and read what it is that you're doing to them. So, oh look, Holy Fire, Rune of Lingering, right? Like, what's that? Like, you can go and look that up and figure out what's causing that effect. Very useful stuff, but the dispel is important. There are also offensive dispels called purges or dispel magic here on Priest, but we're not going to go over that today. In fact, final thing before we go into content and I start holding your paw through actual healing is that healers are complicated. There's a lot of moves here, and it's important that you read through your talents and you read through your stats and your spell book and understand everything that you can do. This is a lot of information though, so I always recommend revisiting it as you get better. I revisit classes multiple times as I'm learning them just to make sure I got it all down, as you might have missed something before and then go, oh, wait a minute, that's really useful. For instance, one of my favorite on Priest. Melee attacks will cause you to gain focused will, reducing the damage you take by 15% by 8 seconds, or for 8 seconds, stacking up to 2 times. This means if an enemy unfortunately hits you, you can get up to 30% damage reduction for 8 seconds. Wait a minute, that's awesome. That means that you're really defensive after you get melee hit. Okay, so there are times where that might save your life, so it's good to know that you might be able to rely on it. And as a final reminder, in case you were skipping around earlier, remember, these search bars are useful. If I type in renew because I saw renew on someone and I'm like, hey, what's renew? I can see everywhere where renew is in my spellbook or my talent tree or anything. Oh man, something Flash Heal did was really weird. Well, go look, see what interacts with Flash Heal. Maybe something here will help explain what you witnessed. So use the search bar, read things. But now that you know the basics of Holy Priest or your own spec, let's start with some actual content. All right, everyone, welcome to a delve. We're going to use delves to kind of show the basics of healing. I also think delves are a fantastic place to start learning because you and your tank Valera in this expansion of Midnight will be taking damage. So it lets you kind of focus on yourself and your tank and do some damage because realistically, you're not always going to have to heal in these instances. But I figured this is a great place for us to showcase a little bit of the mechanics of how a pull works. Pull is the term we use for getting an enemy's attention. We kind of pull their attention and bring them to us. I also want to note that sometimes there's different kinds of enemies. Some enemies, when you pull them, will grab all of their friends and run at you. We call these connected mobs. Then you'll also have ones that will social aggro. A lot of the times in delves, it's a lot of social aggro where if a mob is near another mob and they're angry, the mob near them will also get angry. The radius is rather small, but you will see someone social aggro at one point in your life and go, oh, that's terrifying. So being in the right spot is always good, and your tank is sort of in control of making sure you're all in the right place where you need to be. And while enemies can typically be controlled in delves other than the boss, you need to know that not every enemy can be controlled. I talked about Psychic Scream earlier. In delves, you can get a lot of use out of this, using something like Psychic Scream to stop enemies from casting for a moment, get them to change targets, buy yourself a little bit of breathing room. However, in a dungeon, while this will work in a lot of places, there are enemies that are immune to some or all forms of crowd control. And thus, the only thing that will work on them are those interrupt skills, and that's not something that healers currently have other than Resto Shaman, and I really hope we get them back at some point. But interrupt skills, stopping cast bars, the colorful cast bars, that's going to be on your DPS and your tank most of the time. We're going to be able to go over all of that, so let's begin. By the way, if you are playing in Midnight, I use this for Valera. This kind of makes Valera useless. Holy Pounding Hand Grenade and Time Lost Edict are kind of on the weaker side, thus it lets Valera get in combat for longer and we get to play longer, which makes for better practice. There are better setups for Valera that make her do a lot of damage. I'm not running those right now because, well, I want to get some practice and I want to give you guys some good examples. Also, delves have goofy objectives, so like, we're going to use these little weed dudes to like kind of showcase how mechanics work, but these mobs are not supposed to be what we're in combat with, and they actually hit rather harder than they should. So, when we get in front of enemies, we will enter combat as they get mad at us. When they get mad, you'll notice our frames here get orange. Depending on how mad they are, depends on how orange the frame is or red the frame is. When Valera gets enough threat on them, you'll notice that it goes away from me, and Valera's the only one with threat. And that's kind of what we want, right? We want Valera, our tank, to have the threat. Now, I want to make sure this is crystal clear. You're not starting a pull. Typically, the tank is the one starting a pull. Sometimes a tank might ask you to go hit something for them, and then they'll come running towards you, and that's totally fine. However, most of the time, leave it to your tank to kind of dictate the pulls. But for delves, it gives us a good way to practice, as I can run up here, get a bunch of enemies mad at me, and now Valera has to deal with all of these enemies, and I'm taking damage as well. This lets you practice all sorts of things and kind of really work on your skills. Granted, again, we're not really supposed to be in combat with these dudes, and I forgot the bomb, so I'm gonna go get the bomb really quick. Because in this delve, you're supposed to like instantly eliminate these little weed plant things with the bomb. If you ever see Valera's Agony, doing damage to this will heal Valera. It can take 4 hits, its health bar doesn't matter, and it'll automatically heal Valera, excuse me. Very useful, and it's an alternative way to keep Valera alive. So, that's what a pull is, right? Sometimes a pull is multiple packs of enemies, and you'll hear mobs, packs, pats, enemies. They all mean very much the same thing. We're all talking about the same thing. So, I'm going to cut edit here, and we're going to be outside where things get a little more normal. I'm going to get all these weeds really angry at me, and then we'll be right back. Hello, and welcome to the outdoors. So this is going to represent a little bit more of what an actual dungeon's like, and that's just a quirk with this delve. The day I'm recording this happened to be where it's this weed one, where the intro is a little bit silly. However, this is going to be a little more representative of what you might expect in a dungeon. So if I were to hit this enemy, they're not potentially connected to this enemy. They might be not connected in the slightest. If they're near each other when I start combat, there's a chance that they get mad at the same time. Yep, see? Social aggro. So that's what that looks like. Now notice when these enemies cast, they're going to say the name they're using and then the target. This is called a channeled spell when it turns green and does that. Otherwise, they're typically yellow. The yellow spells are things that can be interrupted. Valera did it instantly. And then we'll also see the target that is being targeted by the spell. And this is really, really useful information because as a healer, you can figure out who's being targeted. That's a buff, so doesn't have a target. But as we watch this, we can see, hey, that was targeting Valera. That's really important to know. So when I'm dealing with multiple enemies, I might be able to better pick out, should I use crowd control here and stop all the enemies from attacking? Or should I figure out who I need to heal next because they're about to take a whole lot of damage? That's something as you get more advanced. But What I like about delves is that they have mechanics, and thus you'll have to watch and keep an eye out as to what's happening. Like right now, I'm getting targeted by Blooming Bile, and if I don't get out of the way, it's going to do a whole lot of damage to me.
I don't think so.
So it's a great way to kind of practice and get us like a sense of the flow. And of course, we're not always taking damage here, so it's a great way for me to practice because I can do damage. Oh, let me get out of the way of this, right? Top us off really quick, and now I can go back to doing damage. It lets you really practice all of your skills. Also, you can go a little crazy in delves. Granted, Valeera can and will die if you pull too much. However, let me clear some of these little weeds out. The unimportant enemies. It is possible for me to run through.
Try harder next time.
Get multiple things mad at me. Bring them to Valeera. And no, if you ever get threat, bring it to your tank, right? Help your tank out. That way your tank can start picking up the enemies for you. And now I have a lot of enemies. This is really effective for our damage and for our healing. But it's going to give us a little bit more of a challenge. So you can kind of set for yourself, how hard do you want the healing to be with Valeera by grabbing more enemies. And while this is good practice, you can kind of see all the different things like, what's this burrowing move? I'm going to stop that burrowing move. Right? You can practice all of your skills here, and that's the really, really important part. However, this isn't quite how a dungeon flows. The combat side may be, but dungeons have a particular flow to them, and I want to show you them before we go into our real example where I do Mythic Plus and show you how that works. So I'm going to finish taking out these enemies. I'll see you in the follower dungeon. Oh, let me get out of the way of that first. Goodness. By the way, to start a follower dungeon, you go to the Dungeon Finder menu, where it shows Dungeon, Raid Finder, Premade Groups, PvP, or the Mythic Plus menu. And then from this drop-down, you go to Follower Dungeon, and then you can select the dungeon. This will always be, typically speaking, the current season of dungeons at endgame. So if you're really scared of Windrunner Spire, you can always click it, and then you can go check out Windrunner Spire and see how it works. Also note that you want to make sure to select the correct role up here as well. So I've selected healer, we have find group, and it won't find any real players, just NPCs. By the way, if you would like a video about how to get into Mythic Plus dungeons or into groups and kind of understanding that a bit better, I will absolutely make that video. Let me know down in the comment section. Once you're in a group, by the way, a couple of things happen. First of all, it's typical before the dungeon starts or as the dungeon starts for everyone to use their buffs. So if you have a buff for your whole party, make sure to use it. Now, I'm just going to go through them really quick. Holy Priest uses Power Word Fortitude. This gives everyone health. Preservation Evoker gives Blessing of Bronze. That's going to give everyone a cooldown reduction on their movement speed ability. Restoration Druid gives out Mark of the Wild, which provides a little bit of versatility. Versatility as a stat increases your damage by the percentage of versatility, and then it reduces incoming damage by half of that amount. So it's a little bit of damage reduction. Shamans give out the Mastery buff. The Mastery buff will allow people who use their auto attacks to sometimes strike twice, and it increases everyone's mastery as well. Paladin has, you have auras, and you're going to be using your aura that reduces damage, which I think is called Devotion, but it's a shield if you're looking for it. And Mistweaver Monk provides Mystic Touch. Mystic Touch is when you do damage to an enemy, they'll take more physical damage from your whole party. So even if you plan on mostly healing, it's still worth going in there and making sure to hit everyone once with your spinning crane kick to kind of ensure like, yep, I've hit everyone, they all have Mystic Touch, they're all taking additional physical damage. Also, a mage might drop for you a table. These tables provide mana buns. Mana buns are super powerful, restores 100% of health and 100% of mana over 20 seconds. This is great if you ever have mana problems, but also if you ever come to a follower dungeon, you can always get a stack of these. So if you want a stack of them before you go into a dungeon, you can actually go do a follower dungeon if your group doesn't have a mage. Now, there's two ways to play this. You can either dungeon assistance, where you start the pull and then the tank will take over, or if you want the true tanking experience, you can click this button and the tank will be the one to start. You can also drag this and put it somewhere if you want to make sure it's like out of the way. How a dungeon works is you all run as a group following behind your tank. As the tank starts pulls, you don't want to do too much because you might rip thread off of them. But once they got a couple of hits in, you can start doing things like I got my Prayer of Mendings out so that if my team takes damage, I can help them out. And now, because there's nothing else going on, I can help them out with the damage. Notice this blue mark, that means they have a magic dispel on them. this is doing damage to the party, so I'm going to want to dispel it. As a nice rule to follow, your tank is actually the person you want to focus on the least, excuse me. I was like, what did I say wrong there? The least. You want to focus on your tank the least. So if 2 debuffs go out and they're hurting your allies, focus on helping the DPS first, get to your tank later. That's going to make a little bit more sense because your tank's probably going to survive. There are some pretty nasty debuffs that are meant for the tank though, and you might want to handle those pretty quickly. But if you're not sure what the game is doing to your poor tank, you can always mouse over and find out. These targets, for instance, will shred armor. And they'll put a little stacking debuff on your tank that shreds their armor. 1% per stack. So it's not too scary at first, but if you ever see that number go really high, ooh, your tank might be in trouble. So things like that can always be looked at by simply mousing over and getting a look. This enemy's casting over here. Notice that they're kind of out of the way. That sort of sucks, right? Well, our tank just threw a shield at them, which interrupts. We can use that interrupt to move the enemies in. You see, when an enemy doesn't have a way to cast, the enemy is going to then go, well, I have nothing left to press. I'm going to run in and punch them. That helps us organize the enemies in such a way that we can do more damage to them because we don't have one sitting out in Narnia, as I like to call it. Now, before a pull, sometimes I'll also get out these mendings while the pull starts, and then it begins. So, pay attention to who's taking damage right now. Fire Spit from this enemy is hitting this target, so I simply heal them. They're the only person taking damage right now. No one else is taking damage, and that's a good thing. Those magic missiles just came out of that enemy though, and now there's some debuffs down. So I can take care of this DPS and then heal our tank a little bit if I have to, but they're pretty fine right now. They're not taking too much damage. Now, the follower dungeons aren't necessarily what I would call optimal. We can also kind of be a little mean and maybe make an enemy angry and have them run out here for us. But if you do, make sure you get the tank in the way so that the tank gets threat, as that's going to be important so that you don't die. I don't recommend doing this for a tank in a real dungeon though, as you never know, you might be playing with a new tank and they're trying to get used to doing pulls, so don't do it for them, let them figure it out. And when you're playing at a higher level, the tank might only be comfortable doing so much, and it's up to them to decide how many enemies they want to grab. It's a little rude to grab more than what your tank wants. However, you might get a feel at a later level in your life where you're like, hey, you know what? I think I know what the tank wants here, and you can grab something for them to make their life a little easier, but I don't recommend doing that until you really know the dungeon. However, if you do know your tank, they might ask you to go do that, and that's pretty typical. So I'm going to grab a couple enemies in this room, see if we can make things a little bit spicier. Yeah, you and you. All right, so I stand in a position for my tank to get the threat of the enemies, and I start healing. This green mark means I'm poisoned. I can't dispel poison, and it's just doing damage to me, so I can heal through it. Oh, it's gone. That's because Paladin actually has a poison dispel. So it's important to note that your party members might have a dispel as well, and they can use that to save you. Mages, for instance, have decurse, so it's possible for them to remove the purple debuff off of a target. So this is a good way to get practice on the dungeon flow, but as you can see, it's not too challenging, right? The mobs don't exactly do a whole lot of damage to us, even if I kind of go off the rails, right? Let's get the mobs really angry. Hold on, yeah, and you, and you, and you. Run them to Captain Garrick. Even now, grabbing all these extra enemies, it's not a lot of damage, right? And that's because this content's meant to be cleared by just about anybody. It's meant to be easier. So we're gonna have to go to a real dungeon. But one thing to note, see this player over here? I can't heal them. This is called line of sight. If you can't see your target, you can't heal them. There are some objects in this world that aren't physical, like this. I can heal through this tent for whatever reason. However, most walls and doors are line of sight. Sometimes if you can't see a teammate, you can't heal them. So if you're ever wondering, why can't I heal them? That might be a reason that you can't. So now that we've seen kind of a bit of the dungeon flow, let's go into a real dungeon with Mythic Plus, and I'll do my best to commentate it. Although I do want to note that these dungeons are going to be particularly harder than what I've been showing you, but I want you to see something with some real examples, so I'm going to do my best to get you the best footage that I can. But ultimately, remember that even if you start doing this harder content, Mythic Plus in this instance, just note that while it is going to be hard, it doesn't start as hard as what you're going to see me do. And of course, I'm not going to be doing something as hard as I can do. I'm going to keep it kind of easy for me, just so that I can have a better time explaining to you. but it's really on my pugs, the players that I pick up and play with, to, you know, make it harder or easier for me. It's going to be on their shoulders, whether the dungeon is easy peasy or thrilling, or maybe even a disaster. But I kind of love that part of WoW, because healing is never linear. It's never the same thing over and over again. When it comes to dungeons, you're going to be having to deal with a lot of randomness. Who gets targeted? Who cleared this mechanic? Who didn't clear that mechanic? And that's going to turn into a lot of variation. So when you're watching me play, remember that when you do a dungeon, it might not look the same as the way that it happened for me. Okay, now let's throw it to the Bowser from the future, and let's see what they found for a dungeon for all of you to watch. Alright, now let's go over some dungeon healing. I'm in the middle of a dungeon, desperately trying to record a section that I think is easy to follow, but welcome to a kind of chaotic pull. These archers don't like to move unless they can't see you. These phalanx breakers are going to do a scream that can interrupt my spell casting, meaning I can be interrupted, so I need to make sure I'm not casting when it goes off. They also have this line attack that I have to be worried about as well, and the archers drop arrows on all of us, so I have to keep watch on my feet. So I'm going to get these pair of mendings out, kind of make sure they're out, ready to do their thing as I dodge stuff on the floor, heal my tank because they seem to be having a bad day. And I know one interrupting screech is going off right now. I'm going to try to heal a little bit before the next one. And I can see it right there. It's done. Now I can focus on healing and go to my lowest health target. Help the tank out a little bit because they're struggling. Lowest health target, lowest health target. And then I know these phalanx breakers are annoying, so I'm going to focus them when I get to do damage. Notice that while my tank is like, their health bars going up and down a lot, this is a blood DK. That's kind of their job. Part of the reason I'm healing them a lot is that they kind of lost my trust earlier. They kind of did a disaster pull. But as you play through these dungeons, you'll start to learn what enemies do what. Like, if you're in a +2 in here and you get interrupted by that phalanx breaker, you're going to be like, oh, what was that, right? And you can go look it up. You can go figure out what that enemy did or watch it happen again. However, oh, please stop hitting me. Once you're experienced, you'll kind of expect the move to come out. This dude's gonna hit us all with an AoE. These mobs in the back put a bleed on people, and these spins can be stopped with CC that is not a fear, because I forgot that I'm a priest and I cannot fear things that are already dead. I'm gonna give out a buff to somebody. I didn't talk about that at all. That's a holy priest thing. I gave out power infusion. I'm gonna just heal people who need it right now, do a little bit of damage while I have the chance. This person's low, I'll get them. I'll hit a Serenity on the Shaman, go back to the Warlock, hit everyone with an AoE heal. I'll start healing myself. It's very easy to heal yourself on Holy Priest, thankfully. Serenity you, heal you, but because I've been hitting all these Serenities, I have my Divine Image, and they're helping me out here. One heal for the tank. See, we don't take a lot of massive damage here. We just sort of slowly bleed out. So I know if their health bars are relatively full, I have a little bit of time to do damage. If you're new and that's a little nerve-wracking, that's okay. You can just focus on the healing side of it until you're really comfortable. There's going to be 2 bleeds in this party, and this Mystic is going to Chain Lightning and cast this Flame Nova. So I want to make sure everyone's nice and topped off around that Flame Nova, because as you can see, it hits us all. Well, that Boomkin's taking a lot of damage. Get us all up. And then I'll go back to doing some damage while I have the chance. I see that the Warlock's been hit quite a bit. I'll go for them next. Throw a single heal on our tank. Yeah, 3 bleeds are out right now, so I'm just going to kind of heal down the line and keep healing these people. I don't really feel like I need to use my Serenities just yet. Serenity here, Serenity here. Now, I don't have all my mana, and while I could recover a little bit of it here, I'm just going to go right into the fight, because I want to show you how important mana management is. Every healer has a different way to manage their mana and recover their mana, and it's just important you know how your class deals with mana. Even if you don't have very hard mana problems, it's still good to know, as every healer will eventually have a way to run out of mana, and it's important to know that. So, watching my feet, this is a fear mechanic. It doesn't do any damage, so I can just slowly heal everyone up. This does damage, though. We phased the boss, so I'm going to heal everyone up. We take some damage, and I have a moment here. Ooh, let's get away from the enemies. I have a moment here to heal up my friends. Oh, I'm getting targeted next. I'm going to move out of the way so that the boss doesn't run at me. Ah, we killed all the enemies. We're good. We're back in. Going to focus on here. Now, the tank takes a lot of damage here, but I firmly believe that this Blood Death Knight will be able to keep themselves alive. I now know the Warlock's about to take a large amount of damage, so I can kind of keep an eye on them. Get to safety. Who's next? It's the tank. I'm not going to worry too much about the tank, right? The tank's got it. The tank will be okay. I don't got to worry about it too much, so I can focus on this Warlock. If it's 2 players, I'd just be healing the 2 that got hurt, but because one of them is a tank, then I'm not going to worry about them too much. Ah, nice damage. Look at this. Nothing else to do. My mana bar's barely moved this boss fight. That's because there's a lot of downtime. Okay, tank, please stop getting hit. We take some damage here, get out some Prayer of Mendings, get some healing down, and we're all healed up. That's nice. I'm gonna pop a defensive here, just so that in case I took damage there, I didn't take a whole lot. I was worried about that enemy hitting me in the back. It's hard for the tank to get threat here because all the enemies spawn on different sides of the room, so you want to do your best at helping your tank get the enemies. Oh, we're done with the phase. It looks like this player's bleeding, so I'll heal them up a little bit. Tank damage, and I already know I don't really got to worry about this tank, so I'll just kind of do my thing, do some damage. Oh, let me get out of the way of that circle. I know it's the Warlock again. I'll heal them. They're going to still take damage. It was the tank again. How lucky am I? Get to safety. Oh, the Warlock can't walk. Unfortunate. So that is not something I expect you to heal, right? That's a great example of kind of, they said almost hee is that that's not my fault, right? That's just straight up not my fault. They walked into a circle, the circle killed them instantly. You don't have to feel bad about that as a healer. If you can save their life, go for it, right? There was a disaster in the dungeon that we tried to save earlier and we just couldn't do it. That's okay. Try not to beat yourself up though when somebody dies instantly, because there are only so many ways to save someone from from instant death. This boss fight's got a lot going on, so I'll try to walk through the mechanics. It's going to start with some damage. I'm going to buff this ally. I'm going to get some mendings out, because we're all going to get a damage over time when she jumps in the air here. Now, this debuff on us can get cleared by touching one of these arrows. I'm going to touch one early. You're supposed to jump this for a mechanic coming up, but it also removes the debuff. I can use that to make my life a little easier, but now I don't have to worry about healing myself. So I can just focus on my teammates. Alright, I'm going to find an arrow so I can safely jump the mechanic. I'm going to heal people as I go. Hit this. I have wings, thank goodness. Make my life easy. No one has the debuff, so I'm just going to do some damage right now, right? Now, everyone's about to get the debuff again, but I'm going to clear mine almost instantly because, well, after I heal. Find a safe place to stand, hit this. Because I want less people to heal, right? I don't want to be fighting for my life. Now, if these DPS loved me, they could also clear their debuff, but they're not. And that's a great example of, it's not really up to you how hard this is. Okay, Warlock, they're just standing in the damage. Oh my goodness. But yeah, they're making my life a lot harder for me right now. And I can show you that we have the chance to heal it. Like, we have the capability of healing this. But it's not really on me to play the game for them. I do have a way to keep them alive, but yeah, that player just never cleared their debuff, so, you know, they're taking extra damage through that whole phase. But now I don't have to clear early because the mechanic lines up kind of nicely, so that early clear I did was just for the start of the fight, and then a higher key that would make my life a lot easier, and at 12 it's not too bad. I heal them up, and oh, look at this, time to do damage. No one's got a debuff, I don't got to worry about nothing. I'm just going to swing. I want to get another chastise up. I'm going to clear my debuff and start healing. I got my chastise out, so I have my Idol of Naru helping me out. I'll get this one. So like I said, these players could be making my life easier. It looks like the Warlock is making my life easier. They cleared. But you can still make it work. I mean it when I say that it's sort of kind of between, like, your players and you how hard the dungeon's gonna be. I'm oh god, you guys do not need to see my bags. It's very much between you and your players, right? Are they gonna do the mechanics right? Are you gonna do the mechanics right? And that'll make the dungeon easier or harder. And I cannot stress that enough, that the pugs really are going to be the determining factor as to how difficult things are. Dungeons themselves can be difficult, but they're going to start at a relatively easy level, so you're not going to struggle early on with pugs making mistakes, as whether they make mistakes or not, it's going to be very healable other than things that one-shot them. But as the dungeons get harder, you expect players to perform better, but now the dungeon itself will be harder to heal, so you'll have to pay more attention and play a little bit better. But with any luck, your players will play better. However, as you saw there, there was a lot of extra going on, and that's pretty difficult to deal with. So it's important to remember, like, kind of learning the mechanics, learning where your heals need to go, and then learning where players can make mistakes. It's very random when you pug. You're not really in control of that. So kind of embrace the chaos and learn where the extra damage is and where the stuff that you have to deal with is. There are these enemies, I'll put some footage on screen, of these devoted Woebringers, I think they're called, and they always do this move where they start yelling until the shield is broken, and then they can be interrupted by a DPS. DPS love to not interrupt this move, not focus this mob. There's like a million things that can go wrong. And there's these like poison files falling from the sky that can do like a bazillion damage to you if you get hit by them. So there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot of places where there's extra damage. In fact, this pole is famous for one other form of damage, instant poison. There's these poison blades that get put on the targets that they kind of apply to their weapon, and then when they teleport behind you to stab you, a move that you cannot stop realistically, and you can't choose who's going to get attacked by it, you will then take additional poison damage because they got that move off. So if your DPS aren't interrupting the shriek, aren't interrupting the poison blades, and they're standing and stuff, there's going to be easily 3 to 4 times the amount of damage coming in that would normally happen. So you have to learn both how to heal the devoted Woebringers and the assassin's standard damage, and of course, how do you deal when people start taking extra damage. Get to a high enough level though, and people won't live if they let those mechanics go off, and it really stops being the healer's problem because, well, they died. They died almost instantly, and they can't expect you to save them from dying instantly to a mechanic that they messed up. Players can get a little obtuse about that as well. However, I want to be the one to let you know, go and do your research whenever a dungeon goes wrong. Try to figure out what went wrong, and a lot of the times don't blame yourself. Sometimes maybe you could have done something, but also maybe a player could have used a defensive. Maybe they could have used a health pot. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more examples or more kind of walkthroughs of healers, or like kind of what I'm doing when I pug, let me know. I don't mind breaking this down more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, friends.